Alright, I got my wife behind the camera. This is the Outdoor X Trophy Tour. This is my room here in Northwest Indiana. It's actually my basement, aka my kids' playhouse, so don't mind the toys if you see them in the background. But we're going to hop right in. Luca, if you could come over to this wall right here. So we're going to start with this deer. This deer I shot in 2016. It was the first year on a new farm in Northwest Indiana. Nice 11 point, had some pictures of him all summer, kind of most of the season. Kind of knew what he was doing. About a week before I killed him, I was walking up to my truck, and 2 of the nights I hunted, he was eating acorns in the yard like 25 yards from my truck. So I knew he was in the area, and if I just put a little time in and hunted smart, I'd probably kill him. And I actually shot this deer 6 feet from the base of my tree, 8 feet off the ground. I didn't even use my sight. I just leaned back in my tree, kind of leaned out a little bit, and he walked right into the hole next to my tree along between the corn and the fence row I was sitting in, and hit him right there, and it came out down here in the front of him and heart shot him, and the rest is history. So that was my 2016 Indiana bow kill. This guy right here, nothing special. It's the only deer I've ever shot with a third or a second main beam, but 2014, hang and bang on my dad's farm in Michigan, and not a big deer, but I was proud of it. It was a fun hunt. So that was 2014, archery in Michigan. And then this, my wife who's behind the camera, we had leased a farm down in southern Indiana, very close to where team member Clayton Rains hunts. Shot this deer with a muzzleloader. I don't know if it was opening day or the second day. I don't remember. She's shaking her head too. We don't remember. But it was 2014. I do know that. It was the first year we leased that farm. My wife shot a buck that morning, and then I shot this buck about 20 minutes later. That was a muzzleloader. Let's move on to this deer. This deer I leased this farm in Illinois in 2015. Really pounded it with cameras in 2016. This deer was all over the farm all summer. He was a beast of a deer. He was an old deer. I think he was going downhill. I would venture to say he was probably 7.5, 8.5 years old, maybe older. Huge deer. Someone had actually shot him with an arrow right in the hind quarter. And when I was field dressing the deer, I found he had a lot of pus in him. So I'm kind of glad I got him and took him out of the herd, took him out of his misery. He probably would have had a slow death. Maybe he would have survived, I don't know, but I shot him with a muzzleloader on opening day in Bureau County, Illinois, with my muzzleloader. This deer, Northwest Indiana buck, 2022, reduction zone. Shot this, you can shoot 2 bucks if you're on a reduction zone, it's called earn a buck. So there was only a couple years I did that. Most of the time I just shot 1, but I had that farm for 7 or 8 years. The last 2 years I shot 2 bucks on it, but the years prior I only shot 1. But 2022, this deer I have 1 set and a single from his, so I have a set from his 3-year-old side, a single from his 2-year-old side, a single from his 4-year-old side, somewhere in that pile over there. But he was a 5.5-year-old deer. I gave him time to blow up, he didn't, but he was a very dominant deer. He's a big deer. Kind of ruled the roost on one side of the farm, and he was kind of my only option at that point. He was the only deer I really had nailed down, kind of knew the area he was going, what he was doing, and caught him on camera slipping up with a hot doe, slipped in there in the middle of a snowstorm and shot him. I think it was the first week of gun season 2022 I shot him, so that was a fun buck though, fun hunt. I tried to video it, but my camera was packed full of snow because it was literally a whiteout when I shot him. I shot him about 180 yards with a 6.5 Creedmoor. Starting to become a big fan of that. This was 2021 archery. Had a rough year that year. Just didn't have a lot of encounters with mature deer. This deer always showed up during the rut. He wasn't a homebody. I'm not sure where he came from, but I had pictures of him, I think 2 years. And I had pictures of him the day before, and he was just a clean 8. I liked how his brow tines curved out. He actually broke this one off within 24 hours when the picture was taken, because I killed him about 22 hours from the day before when he was on camera. And he come through 12 inches of water, just dogging a doe, splashing everywhere. And I had to make a quick decision. Once I saw him, I knew he was a good deer. I knew he was heavy and mature. I'm guessing he was probably a 4-year-old. Don't know for sure because didn't have a lot of history with him, but he did show up from time to time during the rut. We'll move on to this one. You might want to walk around or cut through here if you would. You're doing good. You're doing good. She's dodging around the couches. So, shot this deer in 2022. I was hunting with Mike Wheeler, Wheeler's Whitetails in Kansas. I hunted really hard for another couple bucks that were coming into an area in a blind. I sat 3 days straight, never saw any of them. We made a move. The last evening hunt, I had the next morning to hunt, and then my hunt was over. And buddy of mine let me borrow his crossbow. So I hung up the Matthews and took the crossbow out that night. And I've never hunted with a crossbow before, but I'm glad I had it that night. I shot this deer at 51 yards on film, and he was a good deer. I wasn't sure about the shot. We went and reviewed the footage. Hit him a little bit high. I knew I hit him good and probably messed up something vital. He actually tried to run straight through a 4-strand cattle fence, and that messed him up even worse. We went over that night. He wasn't where I saw him, where I thought he was going to be at when he actually got through the fence. So the next morning we went and looked for him, and while we were looking for him, one of the guys that went with me actually picked up a shed to this deer from the year before. So we were definitely in his core area. I spotted this deer curled up on the riverbank, and there's actually a video of it on our outdoor media page. But we got him. It was a lot of fun. It was a very memorable hunt, and for an 8-point, he was a stud. He went like 148 as an 8-point. He's got 2 scoreable points here sticking off the base. But this deer, moving on, same farm as the first big 8 on the corner there. This was Bureau County, Illinois. It was the first year I leased it in 2015. I was going in to take a stand down and head home from rutcation. I had to get back to work, and it was like 9 o'clock in the morning, and just sneaking in, had my bow with me, walking real slow, and I look up and this deer is coming right at me, and it's a terrible mount, but the guy that caped this deer totally kiboshed it. But it was a huge deer. This is not the original cape because it got ruined. It was a huge deer for what he was. His rack looked tiny on him, but not making any excuses. He had kind of like a paddle horn sticking off here. Just a cool buck. I was really proud of him, and it was a fun hunt. Not many times you just go in the woods with your bow in your hand to take a stand down and head home, and that happened. So happy to get him. That deer dressed 222, came off the same farm as this deer. That deer was at least 5 years old and just crappy genetics. Shot him October 9th, and he had already broke both his brow tines off. Not a high-scoring deer, but he looked like a Brahma bull coming through the woods. It was a late morning, like I shot him like 9:30 in the morning on like October 9th, I think it was, and hadn't seen hardly anything all morning. Seen a bobcat and some kittens, and he come out of the corn, coming through the acorns, just picking at the acorns as he's moving along, and I shot him at like 31 yards in the bow, and he didn't make it about 40 yards, but that was an awesome deer, huge body deer. Move over here. The next one was 2012. This was EHD year. We found 52 deer dead on our farm in Fulton County 3 weeks before bow season started. Every big deer, outside of a few that did come through during the rut, I never had a shot at anything big. This was the best deer I saw. It was my first deer in Illinois, and it was just a nice little 10-point, but not all of them are going to be big. And I hunted so hard that all-day sets for 8 or 9 days straight, and that's all I had for vacation. So I shot that the last night of my hunt before I had to head home, and I was happy to get him, happy to come home with a deer, and my first deer in Illinois. So at the time I thought I'd mount it, not knowing I was gonna, go on a killing spree here over the next 10 years. But we're gonna keep on moving on. Just some turkeys here. Nothing big, nothing big. Just turkey's a turkey to me anymore. But this one was pretty cool. He had a lot of red phase in him. As you can see, his wings are just copper gold. In the sun, he looks awesome. Probably not the best place to put it for lighting, but he was a 3-year-old bird on the farm. I had spent a lot of time with that bird from the deer stand, and I could have killed him when he was a 2.5-year-old or 2-year-old, whatever you want to call a turkey. And I opted to wait one more year, and I killed him on opening morning. I think it was 2019. I shot him. Moving on. So this was 2014, hunting with Sundown Outfitting, Frank Wesley out in Alberta. Not a giant by any means, but it was a last day buck, and a lot of trials and tribulations in my 2 trips to Alberta. Mule deer have kind of been my nemesis. I've had some opportunities at some great deer, mule deer, and just couldn't make it happen. Same with elk up there, but I was really happy to get that one with a bow, and may never go back. I don't know. We'll see. But happy to come home with a deer. So I don't know what a mule deer scores. He's probably not a high scoring mule deer by any stretch, but it was a fun hunt. A lot of fun. Last day buck. Went hard. Stalked all afternoon. Ended up 5 yards from that deer, and he spotted us. Bounded out to 40, and I didn't have time to adjust my pin or nothing. Just shot him on the fly and double lunged him, and the rest was history. So this deer, my wife's behind the camera, but I stopped this deer for her the year before. He was a perfect 10, almost identical to what he is right here, just a perfect 10 point, matched this side. I stopped him twice, but we were sitting a couple feet apart, and her view and my view were different, and she couldn't find him in the scope behind all the trees. So he made it another year, and he ended up getting in a fight sometime around opening weekend at gun, and he had a big hole right here, and his eye has a big scar on it, but he was all messed up. And I think he fractured his pedicle, and this is how he grew back the next year. But I knew it was him when I saw him. He was a huge deer for down there. I'm guessing he was probably a 4-year-old deer. When I shot the deer, I actually heart shot him, but he went over a ridge, and I opted to just wait till the morning because it was a big cold front that moved through. And when me and my buddy Mike Adams went to flip this deer over, the next morning we found he actually died laying on a shed. So his front leg was rolled over on a little 3-point side shed. So first time I ever had a deer actually die laying on a shed. So kind of a cool story. Never had that happen before, probably never will again, but it's pretty awesome. All right, we're going to move over here. My wife's behind the camera right now, as I've told you probably like 3 times, but that was her first good big long beard. We shot that one here in Northwest Indiana. It was about a 15-minute hunt, and so I got that mounted for her. This buck was the last big deer I killed, 2022, end of October. He was a 6.5-year-old, went 168, clean typical. He's got about 2.5, 3 inches of deductions. He's almost perfect. Got a little bit off here on the brow. This side's a little bigger there. He's got about 1 inch here, and then he's got like a quarter, maybe ½ inch on one of his main beams. So he's pretty true, probably the biggest typical I'll ever kill. Got one of his sheds right down here. That's his 2020 shed. Clayton Raines actually helped me figure that out because I thought that this was a different deer that I shot that had gone downhill. And Clayton called me and he's like, dude, that's not the buck I called World Star. That's not him. You have pictures of this deer last year. And I went back. Sure as heck, I had pictures of him from the year before and his shed. So Clayton straightened that one out for me. But we're gonna move right around here. I'll hop right over here. This buck died at EHD, going back to the 2012 season when I shot I'll call it a smaller 10, but this is one of the 3 big deer we found dead. We found a 183, this one's like 155, big clean 10, beautiful buck. He was obviously EHD. I peeled the velvet off and let him dry outside, had him put on a plaque. He's a pretty deer, got a salvage tag for him. This buck I shot with Mike Wheeler. Wheeler's Whitetails in 2015. Drew an early muzzleloader tag. Beautiful 8-point, probably one of my favorite 8-points I've shot. Just chocolate rack. It just come out of velvet. Got the nice summer coat, thin coat. My buddy Mike Adams did a great job mounting that deer. But I shot that deer at 84 yards with a muzzleloader, and I hit him right there, and he didn't go nowhere. It was a lot of fun, hot. It was a hot hunt. Felt like I was in Florida in September down there. It was like 90, I think it was like 92 that afternoon, and sitting in the blind was miserable. I was actually just sitting in my base layers, my thin, at the time, scent lock base layers. This deer had an unfortunate ending. He got hit by a car. That one was from Fulton County, Illinois. 169, some change. Just massive, super heavy bases, main beams. Awesome buck. So I had him put on that just to display him. My son probably knocked him down a few times, and he's missing half of his front of his skull mount there. But moving on. This is just a big old steelhead I caught up in Allegan, Michigan area back in the day, and I always thought they were pretty fish, so I got one mounted. This was an oops deer. Shouldn't have shot him. Just got caught up in a moment, and was hunting a totally different deer, and thought that was him. Come running by chasing a doe, and just got a flash of him through the canopy, and let her fly, and there he is. So I tried to just punish myself for shooting a smaller buck at the time. I really wasn't targeting deer of that caliber. I was targeting a lot bigger deer, and we shot some big deer off that farm that year, and I was the only one that didn't out of the three of us. So had my chances, just didn't work out. So to punish myself for shooting a deer like that, I said if I shot a buck, I'd mount it. So I got it mounted. Maybe I'll think about it the next time, not do it again. But this is back. This one goes way back. 2011. I was hunting. A good friend was letting me hunt some of his land in Michigan, and I shot another 10-point out of the same tree the year before that was a lot bigger than this one, but not a huge buck, but best deer I had a shot at that season. Passed a lot of deer, and that was 2 days before opening day. A gun hunter came out to work on his blind and kicked that deer right to me. And I shot, that's the longest shot I ever made with a bow. I was shooting a Hoyt 38 Pro, and I shot that deer at 55 yards, almost straight away from me, and put it to the fletching right on the back of his ribs and watched him die. So that was a pretty memorable hunt. But to this day, that's the longest shot I ever made with a bow on a deer. Just not a big walleye. These are the ones I eat nowadays. Don't throw those back. But my grandpa passed away, but he had that mounted for me. I caught that up in the UP where he had retired up by his cabin. And normally we'd eat them. He said, I'm going to get that one mounted for you. So that's why it hangs down here. Moving on to this buck. I shot this deer in 2021. It's the first deer I ever shot with a rifle, I think anywhere. Indiana. I knew I was probably going to be losing the farm, and took advantage of what was running around. I hunted the whole bow season trying to kill a deer I called World Star that was a giant, like 180, maybe touching 90. Just a beast of a deer, and never could get it done. Never actually had a shot at him with a bow, and this deer I had really nailed down pretty much throughout the season, and I should have killed him opening morning. My gun misfired, so I went back the next day and got it done, but shot him, could have killed him with a bow. It was like 45 yards, second day of gun, 2021. He was a stud of a 9. He was a 6.5-year-old deer to my knowledge. He was just carries great mass, got a pretty cool blade, sticks out over here on his main beam there. This is my biggest. One of those deer that I always wondered what he could have been, but I wasn't going to pass a deer that green scored 188 inches. Bittersweet. Honestly, didn't even know he was that big. I saw his rack. This story is too long to tell, but I did see the deer once before. I didn't have my binoculars, and he was a long ways away, and my wind was blowing right in the direction he was coming, so I got down and left because I didn't want to blow him out of there. And I killed him 4 days later. I shot him at 43 yards. He was quartering to me, not an angle I would really like to take, but I never stood up. I was sitting down. I had my back anchored against the tree and took my time, made a good shot. But I had no clue he was as big as he was. The next morning, my buddy Jeremy Ogden went to help me get him out, and I thought someone was playing a trick on me when I walked up to him. So that's my best bow kill. I shot that deer, I think it was October 4th, 2019. I have pictures of this deer. He wasn't a regular flyer on my farm. I had pictures of him in 2017 and one picture one night in 2018, and that was it. I didn't even know that I had pictures of him because the camera that I had in this field, this bean field that was secluded that he was frequenting, I hadn't checked it because it wasn't a cell camera. And he was all over it once I killed him and pulled the camera, so pretty cool to get that surprise. But my best deer to date. I'm glad I never knew how big he was. I probably couldn't have pulled it together, but hey, I'll take it. He's a 10 by 6. He's a perfect 6 on this side, and then he's got a scoreable point here. Obviously a split brow tine there, and then he's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here. Plus he's got 2. He's got an 1.25 inches, or a little, I think it's 1.5 inches, and then like a 2-inch tine that sticks out here in the middle of the main beam. So really cool buck. Happy that I got him. Like I said, if that deer was only 4, he had the makings to be unbelievable in another year, but I'm not passing it. Moving on. This deer, I can kind of turn, well, I can't turn that way anymore. Back there, but this deer is probably my favorite deer of all time, by far. This deer taught me more about deer hunting than any other deer I've ever hunted. It was a fun ride. I hunted this deer for 4 years. He was 7.5. Here's both of his sheds from the year before. He hated cameras. I had to play a lot of tricks on this deer to even get him on camera. I knew his core area. I knew where he was bedding, and I killed him on the first time in that year. And I set up everything just to kill this deer. Shout out to my buddy Clayton Rains. He helped me make this box. Well, he actually made a lot of the box, so he did an awesome job with it. But this deer was 24-inch inside spread. He was a mainframe 10 the year before. He went to a 9. Probably, I'm not going to say he regressed, but he dropped this G4 here and put a split on his little kicker off his G2 there. So I think he went 162 unofficial. I don't really care about the score. That will always be my favorite deer. I made a crazy shot on him. He was standing in the corner. I had a hole about the size of I don't know, maybe a little bigger than a softball. And I thought if I could just tuck it in there, he was about ready to get my wind. He was about 5 steps from getting my wind. And right as my arrow and my Luminoc was disappearing into this hole, I clipped a corn ear hanging out, and I saw my knock kick to the right, and it didn't even make a noise like a thwack or like I didn't even know if I hit him, but it actually went right through this side of him right here and hit the jugular. And when I shot, he didn't know where the shot came from, and he turned and ran right underneath my stand, bounced off my stand, flipped over, and died underneath me. So pretty wild how that all played out and went down, but he laid there and died right underneath me. So pretty awesome hunt. Probably my all-time favorite deer. We're going to run back here to the back room real quick, and then we'll wrap it up. Like I said, the lighting's not the best back here, but I shot that deer in Illinois with a muzzleloader in 2013. Fun hunt. Best deer I had a shot at all season. Saw some better deer with a bow. I missed an absolute monster non-typical that year. Hit the side of a tree, and never saw that deer again. But this was second day of gun season. I shot him with a muzzleloader. This was off the Michigan farm I talked about previously. This deer shot in 2010, November 7th, 2010. Came through right at last light with a string of does. Not really rutting, just kind of following them, and went down to get a drink in the river. I was sitting around the edge of the river, and when he turned and came back up the riverbank, dusted him. And that for a long time, that was thought I just accomplished. Just thought I shot a booner. And now I watch a lot of deer like that walk by, but you can't shoot the 150s if you shoot the 130s. So my grandpa actually passed away, but he harvested this deer in Noggin, Michigan. Good friend of mine never came and got that deer. He moved to Texas, but he shot that deer with this hunting on a lease we had in southern Indiana. It's a beautiful 10, broke both his brows, and that's just an ugly mount that's falling apart, but that was a deer I shot when I was 16 with a shotgun opening day in Michigan on our family farm. So yeah, so there's my deer, and if you want to swing over here, this is a king salmon replica. My grandpa came up to Alaska when I was up there, and we did some salmon fishing on the Cortina River, and we both caught salmon, and he wanted to get a replica made, so I got that, and a friend of ours trapped that lynx, and we had it mounted, so that came from Alaska. That came from a buddy's trap line, and so, yeah. But hope you enjoyed my trophy tour for Outdoor X Media. I'm Scotty Goodwin. We'll see you guys next time.